Okay, I guess we're recording. Hey everybody, how you doing? It's me again, Truth Teacher, coming at you with a new video. Walking around in Jersey City looking like Jesus. Well, a lot has happened since I dropped my last video. And I've been staying quiet because I didn't know quite how to respond to the things that are going on. Because I don't want to say the wrong thing, though fuel on the fire being successful. I've already got a lot of that nonsense talking about this whole situation with those three-letter people whose name starts with F. Should be 4 letters. That would be an accurate description. I've been really attacked by certain members of this community who accuse me of all sorts of things, of being a white supremacist, of creating division, which is really ironic when you consider who the people are who are actually using white supremacist talking points and spewing anti-immigrant, xenophobic rhetoric all over the internet and antagonizing different communities all around the world, literally. But I see the way things are interconnected in this world, and especially in this time. So, as you all know, I'm a New Yorker by birth. Born in Soundview in the Bronx before I was exported to Jamaica and then imported back to the United States, where I grew up on the Grand Concourse from 1976 until 1992. Moved to the city, Manhattan, and then eventually found my way here in Jersey City. So a lot has happened in the world, as we've been having this debate about hip-hop and who invented it. We had an election, and a whole lot. Hold on a second, this thing is really hard. We had an election, and of course there's a whole lot of chaos happening as a result of that process, not only domestically but globally as well. We're also at a time when we're seeing a lot of political unrest around the world. We're actually watching a genocide happen in real time that is being supported by both branches of our government. And most recently, we had the primary election in, New York for a new mayor, and that has sparked a lot of controversy because of his ethnic background, his religion, and his stance on certain political circumstances happening in the Middle East. And most of all, radical idea that something should be done to address the wealth gap and lack of affordability of, just being able to live in New York and the 5 boroughs. But you see, here's where all of this comes together. This whole thing about hip-hop, what's going on in the government, what's going on in the Middle East. I saw this video by a YouTuber. Her name is Sabi, and she does a lot of political commentary and analysis on her channel. And she was reacting in this video. She was reacting to a comment that Dave Chappelle made in one of his shows in the Middle East. I believe he was in Abu Dhabi. But basically, what he did was he called out DJ Khaled, who is Palestinian, but has been surprisingly quiet about what's going on in Gaza, what's happening to his own people, which I find, well, not just me, but everybody finds really strange. Given the fact that he is a Palestinian, and no matter how you want to slice the thing, you have to admit that what is happening there is atrocious. It's just completely abominable and dystopian. Like, this is what's happening to those people is like something you'd expect to see like in a Mad Max movie or some shit like that. Yet and still, DJ Khaled has been completely silent. He hasn't uttered a word about it. Now, in the media, Jewish celebrities have been very vocal about their support for Israel and what Israel is doing in Gaza. So why is it that Khaled, who is the most visible representation of the Palestinian community, why is he being so silent? And basically what Sabi did in this video, which I think was very well done, is she connected the dots. Whereas she said, followed, as she keeps saying, follow the money. And she showed that even though DJ Khaled owns his label, he doesn't own the company behind the label. And so she did some digging and said, okay, so if he doesn't own the company behind it, who does? And who are these people? Come to find out that the people who own the company behind DJ Khaled are all Zionist businessmen who are intimately linked to political policy in Israel and have direct links to the Israeli government. But the part that I found the most disturbing was the fact that a lot of these businessmen were directly in a place where they were dictating political policy in the United States in the favor of Israel. There's one particular person I would have to go back and look in the video to see who he is, but this man who owns this record label is the person who was directly creating the foreign policy. He penned the foreign policy of the United States with regards to Israel and put it on Biden's desk. So this is a person who is directly influencing the political policies of the President of the United States in favor of a foreign nation. Now look, I don't care what your position is as far as the legitimacy of the state of Israel. I'm not an Israeli. I do have Jewish ancestry. But at the end of the day, I'm an American citizen. I am born and raised most of my life here in the United States. My allegiance is to the United States, not a foreign government. I have absolutely no desire to want to live in Israel. Been there, seen it, was not impressed with what I saw. This is my country. I vote for the political leaders in this country. I abide by the Constitution of this country. And it's because of the Constitution of this country that I'm able to have the rights that I enjoy. It's because of the fight of people who were here in this country before my family got here, because I'm first generation. And I'm speaking primarily of the African American community, but there were other communities as well who fought for a lot of the rights that I am able to enjoy. So it really disturbs me deeply that there are people who are here in this country extremely wealthy, but their primary allegiance is not to this country, but a foreign nation. I find that highly disturbing, and I don't understand why that's allowed to exist. I mean, how would most people feel if they knew that the government of Poland was architecting, was designing international policy of the United States and its citizens? I mean, does it take a rocket scientist to realize that that's a problem? So why is it that when it comes to this particular country, like, they're off limits? You can't criticize them. You can't disagree with them, and if you do, you get labeled as anti-Semitic. You know, she went on to show that these same people not only are they financing the Democratic Party and the elected officials in the Democratic Party, but they're also doing the same thing in the Republican Party. So Biden, Trump, Obama, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, all of them bought and paid for by people who have their primary allegiance to a country in the Middle East. So it makes you think, it just makes you think on so many levels. What the hell is really going on here? You know, and I bring it back around again to this whole thing about hip hop, right? Because there's all of this outrage because a few of us have said that, you know, something like people from the Caribbean, both English and Spanish speaking people from the Caribbean, along with African Americans, had a hand in creating this thing that we now call hip hop, which was started out organically on a grassroots level by a bunch of kids just expressing their creativity. There's been so much vitriol and hatred, outright hatred, because we dare to tell our side of the story and how we fit into this narrative. Yet and still, this thing that people call hip-hop now, and when they say hip-hop, what they're talking about is rap music, all up in arms and got their asses on fire because Puerto Ricans and West Indians said we had a hand in its evolution. But the rap music industry is owned outright by billionaires whose primary allegiance is to a foreign government outside of the United States. And they use that money of these rap music artists to fund policies that directly benefit said country. Not us here in the United States, and most definitely not people in the communities where rap music actually began, but to foreign entities, foreign nations and their citizens who just happen to have a certain religious affiliation. Am I the only one that sees like how disturbing and distasteful this reality is? And you know, people will ask me and I'll tell them, you know something, I don't listen to rap music. I haven't listened to rap music in a very long time. Because at a certain point, it became extremely toxic. When it got to the point where they were glorifying violence, when they were glorifying drug use and drug trafficking, when they started calling women our women, hurry up. Jesus. That's the one thing I fucking hate about Jersey City is like all these fucking ambulances. Just go on the damn siren because you don't want to stop for a red light, and then you're gonna fucking crawl like a goddamn snail making all this fucking noise instead of just going where you need to go. Jesus Christ. Anyway, I digress. I stopped listening to rap music when they started calling our women bitches and hoes. And for me, it was especially egregious because even though I'm not an African American, I'm living in this country. I owe a lot of what I have to the sacrifices of African Americans. And for the most part, most people who look at me probably automatically assume that I'm African American. And I know the history of this country and the way African Americans were treated. And I know how many black men lost their lives simply because a white woman said a black man looked at me a certain way, a black man talked to me a certain way, a black man tried to touch me or whatever. The riots that destroyed Tulsa, Oklahoma were kicked off because some white girl in an elevator accused a black man of trying to molest her. And just on that accusation alone, the entire wealthy, thriving community in Tulsa, Oklahoma was burnt to the ground. Then you have so many cases of women who accuse black men of trying to rape them when everybody in the community knew that that woman was public property. But yet and still, even the most immoral, lowest white woman was valued higher than the most decent black man. And he could have his life taken without any recourse to justice whatsoever. So that's the way white society, that's the kind of value they put on their women, to the point where you could be the lowest slut in the community and you were still valued higher than the most virtuous black woman or man. And so to see black men calling our women bitches and hoes, I don't know about you, but knowing that history, I can't reconcile that. I can't co-sign that. That fills me with such a sense of anger and rage and just a feeling of betrayal. And the fact that every time you turn around, one of these rappers opens up their mouth and says something fucking stupid that denigrates black women, dark-skinned black women. How many rappers have you heard calling dark-skinned black women out of their name? Oh, they ugly. They're. All this, oh, they're masculine. Oh, all this bullshit. It pains me. But it pains me even more because I've always realized that when rap music went commercial, we lost it. It was from that point in the hands of another community, and those people are the ones who dictate everything about it. They dictate who gets to be put on. They dictate the image of the artist making the music. They dictate the lyrical content of the music. So at a time when, if you even say the wrong thing about a Jew or Jewish people or Israel, your career can be canceled, right? But these records, these songs that are being put out, how many times you hear the word nigger being used? And nobody is held accountable for that. And this, these lyrics are being architected by a particular community who, God forbid, you say the wrong thing about their people, you will lose your whole career. But they're penning the script and giving it to young black men and women to call our people niggers, to call our women bitches and hoes. Y'all don't see a problem with that? Y'all aren't disturbed by that? Because I fucking sure am. I am disturbed by that. And that's why I don't support that music. I don't. I refuse to buy it. I refuse to give money to these people who are talking bad about all of us, and certainly knowing that the money that's being made off of it isn't even going to the black community. It's going to fund another community of people who have turned what we created in the Bronx into a minstrel show. I have a problem with that. And so now I'm sitting here and I'm watching as civilians in Gaza who are starving to death, not because they can't grow food or they don't know how to feed themselves, but because a particular government is deliberately starving them to death. And preventing necessary medical and food aid from getting in. And the thing that is so abominable is that when the little trickle of resources that's allowed to come in to that area, when these unarmed civilians who are starving go to collect aid, they're being shot at and they're being killed. I think it's like over 600 Palestinians in Gaza now have been killed because they were lining up to get food, relief assistance. These weren't people who were combatants. These were civilians, unarmed civilians. And I just got to connect the dots because, there's a lot of people, oh, well, I'm black, I don't have to worry about, that's not my fight, that's my... Dude, connect the dots, Who is controlling all of this? And have we seen a situation in the United States where unarmed civilians have been killed, murdered by the police force when they were clearly not a physical threat, when they were clearly unarmed, where they were clearly complying with police force, when they've had their hands handcuffed behind their backs and they're laying face down on the ground? Have we seen situations where such people in our country have been executed? So we have a government that is green lighting a genocide, who also has a history of unaliving unarmed citizens in its own country. Do you see why I'm alarmed? Are you connecting the dots? Are you connecting the dots? Because the way I'm looking at it is, if they can do that bold face over there and come up with excuses for it, just like they came up with excuses to justify what they did over here every time you had an unarmed civilian who was posing no physical threat to a police officer, handcuffed and on the ground, and they were just killed execution style, and the judge ruled that the use of deadly force was justified. Do you see why I'm nervous and asking myself, if they can do that over there, what's to stop it from happening on a much larger scale over here? And who are going to be the first people to be victimized, to be targeted by such behavior? Is it making sense? So now we get to the situation where we have a new person in New York running for mayor. And, you know, I saw a short clip where they had Mandani and a whole bunch of other people who were on the ballot to be, you know, would-be mayors. And the question that kept being asked to everyone was, if elected mayor, what would be the first thing that you would do? And every last single one of them, the first thing I would do is go to Israel. The first thing I would do is visit Israel. The first thing I would do is visit Israel. And then they get to Mandani, and he said something different. And instead of going on now with the other questions, the person asking the question, well, what about Israel? And he's like, my priority is to the people of New York City and making sure that their needs are taken care of, and that's what I'm focusing on. Well, what about Israel? Do you think that Israel has a right to exist?
The first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo?
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel, followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, two of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani?
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
No,
as a state with equal rights.
he won't
Not as a
say it
Jewish
has a
state.
right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very
And his
clear.
answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
That's what he was trying to say.
No, unlike
No,
you, I
you
answer.
never-
Unlike
you
you, I
never
answer
said
questions
no.
very
Okay.
directly.
All right.
My goal would be to take my first trip to Israel. My wife's life work in this area means a lot to our family. And
Are you guys seeing what's happening? Are you seeing the picture? Are you seeing the bigger picture here? Mandani is a Democrat. And instead of the Democratic Party being behind him, they're actually trying to sabotage him. You know, it just shows you how out of touch. And by the way, as you all already know, he won the primary. And the Democrats are still trying to sabotage his campaign. It just goes to show you how fucking out of touch the Democratic Party is. Which is why they lost the election to who we have in the White House now, because they are fucking out of touch with reality and what the people of the society really want and need. Both the Republicans and the Democrats are being controlled by a foreign entity that dictates public policy for this country. Is that not a problem? There's something wrong with that. A foreign nation that is trying to undermine our constitutional rights of free speech. If we say something about the government, you know, of Iran, or the government of Russia, or the government of China, North Korea, Brazil, anywhere around the world, if we come out and we say that we disagree with their public policies or their political actions or whatever, no problem. But God help you if you come out and you say that you have a problem with what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza right now. God help you. And especially if you're a politician, God help you. There are forces in this society who will try to destroy your life, your livelihood. There are forces actively in this country right now trying to make it a criminal offense to speak out against a foreign nation. They're pulling funding from certain colleges because the student body dared to speak out against the slaughter of innocent civilians who are being killed with weapons supplied by our tax dollars. Now, I don't know about a lot of you, but I'm old enough to remember the Vietnam War. And students all over this country, on universities all over this country, were up in arms and kicking a bitch about the war in Vietnam, which is one of the reasons why one of the factors that helped for the war in Vietnam to end when it did. Were any of them deported? Were any of those students arrested and just like snatched up off the streets and imprisoned? But because students held nonviolent protests against the immorality of what a certain government was doing, now those colleges are being targeted. But it comes as no surprise when you realize that both political parties are being bought and paid for by people who have a lot of money, and their primary allegiance is to the Israeli government and not America or the American people or the needs of the American people. So for all of those people who are coming against me, you three-letter word people and anyone else, because of the information that I'm sharing about, the fact that other people besides African Americans had a role in playing, in that. Wake up and see the bigger picture. Because right now we're in a situation where the rights that your ancestors fought for over 100 years to achieve are being dismantled as we speak. And the thing that you're most concerned about is who the fuck invented hip-hop? When y'all don't even own hip-hop anymore. The black community does not own hip-hop and hasn't for a very long while. And all of the images, like I said, the images, the lyrical content, and who gets to be signed to a label is all controlled by people who are not black or Latino or West Indian. It's all being run and dictated by people who are loyal to a foreign government and agency. So I just want you all to let that marinate, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.